What time is it? It's Sampstra Games time, and welcome to my guide on exfiltration in Sigma theory. So, first of all, let's talk about the alert level. So the way the alert level works is that when you start the exfiltration, the alert level that you have in the country is the same that you can see above in the exfiltration window, and it's also the thing that sets up the distance that you have to go. So if you look at the right top on the screen, you can see the distance that you have to go to exfiltrate that scientist. So if the alert level is 0, the distance is going to be 1.2 kilometers. If the alert level is 100%, the distance is going to be 5 kilometers, and then obviously proportionally in between. Now, the extra alert level that you can see on top of the screen is then changed depending on your actions, and it affects the amounts of enemies that you meet on patrols. So now let's talk about the decisions that you make within the exfiltration. So every time you have some sort of a task on the left, and you have 2 options. Now, in most cases, these options are kind of like a choice between, let's say, strength or intelligence, but there can be some exceptions where the choice depends like on your diplomacy or on a certain trait. We're going to talk about traits a little bit later. So when you're doing a decision, try to remember what your agent is good at, whether they're intelligence or strong or both, and try to pick the choice that seems like it's going to go down with that path. Now, if they have a good trait that kind of fits the thing that you're asking them to do, they will use their trait. If not, they'll just use intelligence or strength work, and then the decision will either work or it will not. Now, depending on whether it works or not, you have a certain distance that you can walk, and it can also increase the alert level. Now, next up, let's talk about the patrols. Now, like I said, the number of people in the patrols is dependent on the alert level, on the current alert level, not the alert level of when you start the exfiltration, on the current one. So if you make some bad choices in the exfiltration, the alert level will increase and you will meet a lot of patrols. There are at most 2 patrols per exfiltration. And in the patrol, you have 3 different options. You can flee, you can neutralize, and you can eliminate. Now, when you start a patrol, you can see on the left bottom what kind of weapon your agents have. Now, there are only 2 options. You can have a knife or you can have a firearm. And these 2 weapons are used if you click on the eliminate. If you go with neutralize, then you're using hand-to-hand combat, so you're not even using your knife. Or you can try to flee. The flee usually has the highest chance of success, but the problem with fleeing is that even if you flee, the patrol will follow you. So flee is usually only a good idea if you're very close to the end, so you know that you'll be able to flee and just kind of end the mission. Otherwise, it can be very risky. You can still try it, but it's a risky decision. And then you have neutralize and eliminate. So for neutralize, you're using just hand-to-hand combat. You usually want to use the neutralize if you have an agent that's good at black belt. As for eliminating, you can have an agent that's good at knife fighting or firearms expert. Beware that some agents may be pacifists, so they will refuse to eliminate enemy agents. Now, one more tip when it comes to patrol is don't be afraid to use the same option twice. This is true with fleeing, but it can also work, for example, neutralizing, is that for example, if you go with neutralize, you can get rid of maybe 2 agents, but you had 4, so there's still some left, to just do it again. You can see on the right top, if you get rid of some agents, they'll be kind of crossed off, so you can see how it's going. And if you fail a patrol, then you will get caught and your agent will be arrested. Now, I've mentioned traits a lot, so let's talk about traits that are good for exfiltration. So if you look in my agent window, you can see I have this girl Espoir. She's very good at exfiltration because she has fairly high intelligence and strength, so no matter what options you choose, she should be able to do it. Aside from that, she has the black belt trait, which is very important because this allows her to be very good at the neutralizing enemies. And she's also an exfiltration expert. Now, this trait is important to avoid patrols. So usually you have a patrol and there's nothing you can do about it, you just have to fight it, except for drones, which we'll talk about in a minute. But then you can also have exfiltration expert and you have a chance that she will be able to elude a patrol, which is very, very powerful, as patrols are the places where you can get arrested and essentially the most risky encounters in the exfiltration. Another good trait is a knife fighter. This is especially good when you want to eliminate enemies, because every time you do exfiltration, you always have a knife. So this can be very powerful as well. And then you have Master of Disguise, which is fantastic because this helps you in different decisions in the exfiltration. For example, when you're supposed to blend in or stuff like that, you can use Master of Disguise and it can really help out a lot. So having someone like Saint who's good at both Black Belt and Master of Disguise can be very useful, because he can neutralize the enemy as easily, and a lot of the decisions that you're making he'll be able to do because he is a Master of Disguise. Then you also have Firearms Expert, which is somebody who's very good with a firearm. So this can also be very powerful in exfiltrations. And I've kind of explained like which agents are good and which agents are bad. So let's talk about when you want to deploy which agents on the exfiltration. Now, the most important thing here is to look at your alert level, and based on that, decide what kind of agents you want to use. So if you have 30% or less alert level in that country, then you can use bad agents. So you can even pick an agent that's, for example, really bad at exfiltration. In my playthrough, for example, in one of my playthroughs, I had this hacker. Now, he's very bad at exfiltration. There's really nothing he's good at in that sense. But if you have such a low alert level, like less than 10%, even he was able to exfiltrate my agents. So if you have low alert level, you can afford to do this even with bad agents. Above 30% alert level, I would say use agents that are good at it. So you usually have one really good agent like this girl, and then you should have like at least one other agent who doesn't have to be the best of it in exfiltration, but has at least like Black Belt or a Knife Fighter, or at least one of those like to handle the patrols traits, and then is reasonably intelligent or strong. So then you have essentially like two agents that you can use for exfiltration. Now, if you have a higher level alert level above 50%, then you'd like to use drones. So let's talk about drones. So you have two types of drones. You have a combat drone and a surveillance drone. Now, what do they do? Well, what the combat drone does, it allows you to kill enemy agents. So if you have a patrol, before your agent actually encounters the patrol, you can use your drone to kill some of the patrol guys. Now, this usually increases the alert level a lot. And at least in my playthroughs, in most cases, you have at least some survivors. So your agent will still have to fight the patrol, even though then they'll have like just one guy or something. And you can only use the combat drone once during the exfiltration. So recommended is to use it on the second patrol, because if you use it on the first one, you increase your alert level, and then on the second patrol, you'll have more enemies. The other option is to have a surveillance drone. What surveillance drone does, it will give you a chance to avoid a patrol. So the surveillance drone will see the patrol, it will tell your agent, hey, there's going to be a patrol soon, and then your agent has a chance to avoid it. Now here, it's a different chance to avoid it than the exfiltration expert. If you have an agent with exfiltration expert, they can avoid patrol even without any drones. But if you have a drone, then every agent has a sort of like a chance to avoid the patrol. So it sounds actually less cool because you still have enemies, but it's actually much better than the combat drones. So they recommend using surveillance drones mostly, because they can allow you, even if you can just avoid one patrol, it can be a huge help. And even when you avoid these patrols, they do not follow you. It's not the same as fleeing. So you can just like forget them and they will never go after you again. So that's very important. And I think that's it for the exfiltration guide. If you have any more tips, write them down in the comments. And I'll see you in another episode. Bye bye.